What's going on, y'all? Welcome in. It is the Daily Destroyer, DFS show, Dynasty Warzone Network. We took a little bit of a break for the holidays last weekend, but we are back on that grind. Ready to talk Week 13 cash games on DraftKings, hitting that main slate, as we always do. He is Lou. I am Tyler. Starting at the quarterback position, what's a player that sticks out to you, Lou? Maybe a player that you're really looking to play, or maybe a player that you're really looking to fade.
Yeah, this week I think one of the big games is going to be this Kansas City Cincinnati game. I'm interested in Joe Burrow here, 6,900, nice price on him, and we know his ceiling. We know games like this. We saw it last year. He can hit 500 yards, really rack up the fantasy points, and the Chiefs are a matchup that I like as a quarterback. So to me, I think Burrow, one of the guys that I'm looking at for cash, maybe my favorite, depending on price. I don't think you need to go that cheap this week, but if you want to, you could go Trevor Lawrence. He's at 5,900. Between those two, probably end up with one of them on my team. I don't know if I need that 1,000 to go down to Lawrence, and we've seen it from Burrow more often, so that's where I lean Burrow.
Got to talk about Jalen Hurts here. I know the matchup isn't necessarily the most sexy as they get with the Titans, but still, it's nothing that I'm necessarily going to be afraid of. With that said, 8K Hurts, I feel like that's a pretty fair price. Pretty much guaranteeing yourself, as long as he's healthy, 20 DraftKings points in cash. I think the floor is just there. Like, the run defense is pretty stout on the Titans, so I think there's some concern there. Will he be able to rush? I'm certain. He's just that special of a player. Like, when you talk about the Titans' run defense, we're really talking about them shutting down opposing teams' running backs, right? Not necessarily the quarterback scrambling. We know Hurts is special. And the pass defense for the Titans is middling at best in some ways. So, matchup is tough, but still, Vegas has 24 implied points here for the Eagles, and I think when we're just talking cash games, Hurts just feels safe. It's kind of like, when Josh Allen's on the slate, we play Josh Allen. We've talked about that in prior weeks, but 8K Hurts, I'm not having the hardest time fitting him in, so I'm kind of leaning that way. Your thoughts on Hurts?
I think it's going to depend on some injuries at running back. I think it's very easy that you can fit Hurts this week. The potential that it's going to be very easy to do that, I should say. Yeah, I mean, the Titans are a great matchup. We know he can do on his legs. We know he's able to throw for 300 yards as well. This is one of those good matchups, the way the Eagles have been playing the last few weeks. Maybe this is somewhat of a bounce back in a way for him. But yeah, I like him on the upper end. I think you can also obviously go Mahomes in that same matchup, but 8,300 for Mahomes it's a little tough to swallow when you could get Hurts for cheaper with his rushing upside. So yeah, I don't know if I'm going to be playing Holmes at all this week, but obviously Patrick Mahomes, you could play him any week and no one would say that you were wrong. So do you think you'd pick Mahomes over Hurts in any scenario here?
Probably not. Maybe in some GPP lineups, but I'm probably not going that direction, so it's going to be Hurts for me. Another thought I was having here, Lou, is I think one game that people think is sneaky, which is not going to be sneaky, is going to be getting to that Detroit Lions and Jacksonville Jaguars game. It's got a pretty nice total on it. People are going to be going to it. 51.5 implied points, which is pretty solid here. Anything over 50 we really like. But
This season,
yeah. But my take here is, like, I think both of these teams have a propensity to disappoint individuals. It's not necessarily teams you want to be betting on. And the Lions' defense over the last 4 weeks has been a completely different defense over the first 8. They did some shuffling around. I think they believe they fired their cornerbacks coach or secondary coach, what have you, and things have actually been looking good over the last 4 weeks. I mean, they've come to play. The defense has showed up. They're getting some pressure. They're limiting yards per attempt. I just think that this is a game that I think a lot of folks are going to be going to, and there's some pieces of it that I'm still interested in, but I think the quarterbacks, namely, are two good guys that I think will have pretty decent ownership. Goff, but more so Trevor Lawrence at 59, and I'm just not going to go that route. Thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I don't think I could do Goff. Lawrence, yeah. And last week we did see some ceiling from him. I think he had 29 fantasy points on DraftKings, and he's a guy who, in this spot, like probably saved for at least 15 points. He's gonna have the same ceiling as Burrow and Hurts. So if he can get up, that's where I'm leaning that way. But I mean, we've talked about it basically every week. You play against the Lions and even the Jags. We've come to that uh, fantasy goodness all around. So I like Lawrence. I think when we get to running back is one reason I might be off of him a little bit, but yeah, I think he's probably safe for over 200 yards, touchdown or two through the air, and he can run. So he does have that upside of. I think he had a 2 rushing touchdown game earlier this year, so we could see him running a touchdown as well. So he does have that upside. I think he's my favorite under 6K, but there's definitely other places you could go to. I just don't think Goff has the same upside as Trevor Lawrence.
Any quarterbacks you want to talk about before you grab that pool of 3?
Yeah, talk of the week. You gonna play Deshaun Watson?
Yeah. I like Deshaun Watson this week. I think it was 65. It's a good price. But I there's the narrative of like, all right, look at the situation. They're playing the Houston Texans. You get a run for free. Why not just hand the ball off to Chubb the whole time and let him kind of work his way back in to the NFL? It's been almost 2 years, so I totally get the fade, but the price is good. So I'm on the fence with Watson. I don't necessarily find myself needing to go there, but I bet that I'm a little bit higher than consensus on what we expect out of Watson this week.
Yeah, I think the way you beat the Texans this year has just been running the ball, and I think you can ease Watson in here a little bit, get him back up to game speed. He has had a long time off, so I don't full on expect him to just come back and be thrown for 350 yards and 4 touchdowns or anything like that. So I'm in a wait and see mode on him, but you're probably going to get him at low ownership. And if he does get 25, 30 fantasy points this week, he's not going to be low owned again.
Pool of 3 quarterbacks, Lou.
Yeah, for me, it's Burrow, Lawrence, and Hurts.
Moving on, running backs. This is where things get a little more interesting. I think there's also a lot of really good plays. A lot of running backs that we typically like are in pretty good situations, and a lot of the prices seem pretty fair as well. I think it's worth mentioning maybe starting at the top, kind of like we have in the past. Let's make our arbitrary cutoff at 8K like we have. You know what? Let's just put Josh Jacobs in there too, 79. But we got Josh Jacobs, 79, Chubb, 8, Henry, 81, Barkley, 82, Eckler, 85, Christian McCaffrey, 86. So McCaffrey at 86 down to Josh Jacobs to 79. That's 6 backs that I would consider kind of in that top range. Where do your interests or fades lie there?
Yeah, I think after last week with Jacobs having over 50 fantasy points, people are just going to click his name. At this point, he has 3 games over 30 fantasy points, and people know that ceiling. They want a piece of that ceiling. He has a good matchup against the Chargers. He's someone that I think I would only play in cash and probably fade him in tournaments because it just seems like a great fade spot. Almost like how great of a spot it was to play him last week because Adams was super owned. It's almost like flip the script and play the other one this week. So that's how I'm looking at Jacobs. If might play him in cash if I could get there because if his ownership is going to end up being high. I think I'd rather play Chubb in tournaments because it's a great matchup against Texans that just love giving up 100 yards to opposing running backs. So I think Chubb for only 100 more than Jacobs is a great pivot in GPPs. People don't like playing Chubb because generally he's not catching a bunch of balls, but this just seems like a spot where he can get 100, maybe 200 rushing yards, multiple touchdowns. Seems likely that he'll hit the 100-yard bonus this week with at least 1 touchdown. So to me, I'm going to pivot to Chubb there. Above that, though, I don't know. I think those are my 2 favorite ones. Eckler is in a great spot The Raiders have given up 10 total touchdowns to running backs in the last 5 weeks.
It's a lot.
Just pencil Eckler in for his 2 touchdowns this week. Seems like he's been doing it a ton, and Mike Williams isn't there. I think Eckler is probably my next favorite. Henry also has a good matchup against the Eagles. He can run on the Eagles. So all these guys are pretty interesting, and we have a decent amount of value elsewhere that you could probably fit them. You might be able to fit 2 of them. But for me, I think I'm going to fade Jacobs and try to catch one of these other upsides in tournaments, but probably play Jacobs as more of a block in cash games if I get up there.
Moving down the list a little bit, I think there's a couple names that are going to stick out to me almost immediately. It's going to be Joe Mixon, 71. The matchup's pretty solid in the terms that there's a lot of points expected to be scored, and I expect a lot of folks to be looking for these pass catchers. Jamar's coming back. Higgins at a good price. We talked that we like Burrow. I think a lot of folks are going to miss over Mixon. And then Kenneth Walker right below him at 7K. I mean, Kenneth Walker, the matchup's a little tougher for Kenneth Walker, but again, like all this guy does is score touchdowns. We know that he has that burst to, break it loose and do something big. And then moving down just a little bit, skipping over Aaron Jones, forgive me, is Travis Etienne at 64. There was concerns with his health. Looks like he's good to go. He's playing in a pretty soft matchup, as we talked about. Maybe not as soft as it used to be, but still, it's tough to not call it a soft matchup. Etienne's been a workhorse at 64. Like, that is a really good price. Thoughts on Mixon 71, Kenneth Walker 7, and Etienne 64. These are 3 guys that I do like a lot.
Yeah, my favorite is Etienne. Great matchup against the Lions. He's been the guy. Do you have any concerns that he's not 100%? Last week, he really failed if you played him in season long as well. So that I do have that in the back of my mind. But, I mean, this is such a great matchup, and he's 6,400.
I think it's 2 things, Lou, that make me feel a little better about this. 1, the foot he injured was not the foot that he has had issues with. It was the opposite foot. And 2, he was cleared to come back last week. He just did not. I think they elected just not to risk it. He's been practicing. I am kind of operating as if he is fine. I don't think there's going to be a concern with like a limited workload. I mean, hats off to Hasty for coming in there and looking pretty solid, but I think this goes right back to Etienne. And the thing is at the price of 64, I feel like it's a risk that I'm willing to stomach when it's at 64 with a workload that he has been getting.
Yeah. So he probably still is my favorite in this range. Jeff Wilson, it's tough because
the matchup is bad, man.
He's the guy.
Matchup is bad.
Revenge. I don't think he's going to get too owned because this is where, like, at this point in the year, I think people look at matchups and you have enough data at this point that I think people are scared to play guys against the 49ers, the Patriots, things like that. So I don't know if I'll go there. 6,100 is a pretty good price. I don't know if you consider it's failed last week, but people expected a lot more out of him against the Texans. So I probably won't end up playing him. I think there's enough other plays that you can go to. Like Kenneth Walker, now up to 7K. Somewhat pricey now for him.
It is. It is.
To these other guys.
I'm probably not playing Kenneth Walker. I like the play. I wouldn't talk you out of the play. Aaron Donald is also not playing in this matchup, so I think there's some help there. I mean, the Rams are giving up in a lot of ways, so I think there's some ways to go, but I think there's just other plays that I like more than Kenneth Walker. Is really what it comes down to. I like the guy. I like the play. But it's one of those games that could also kind of be a little bit of a slog. I don't necessarily think that there's expected to be a lot of points in this one. At 41 point implied total is kind of low. So, I mean, I'm okay with missing out on Kenneth Walker this week, especially with the lack of pass game that generally happens for him.
Yeah, I think it is tough. It is tough for me to think about. But, a lot people like playing defenses against the Rams as well. Walker works well with the defense. We've seen his big playability. He might be in the running for Rookie of the Year this year at this rate. I don't know. There aren't a ton of rookies that are standing out because of injuries and whatnot. I like him as a play. I think let's talk about some of these guys that might open up though. Cheaper guys. So a couple on my list are Brian Robinson, Zonovan Knight. Gibson's 5,200 as well, but he missed practice yesterday. He came back today, but I don't know. That could be in the back of the mind. People like B-Rob. He wore that big hat last week.
And he had a great week too. And he had a great week too.
So I don't know. I kind of lean him between the two, but those are probably two of the cheaper guys that. What about Kyron Williams too? Like some of these cheaper guys under 5,500 are like reasonable to play. Do you have interest in Zonovan Knight if Carter were to play? Do you have interest in B-Rob if Gibson were going to play? Do you have any leans there?
I would lean B-Rob if Gibson doesn't play. I really would. I mean, I went on, I think 2 weeks ago, I was like, I'm playing B-Rob. It didn't work out for me, obviously. I would go back to the well, even though I got burned, just because the good week he had last week, the matchup doesn't necessarily scare me. I mean, the Giants pretty much hemorrhage on the ground. They're not good. Their run defense is bad. Let me pull up the stats right now just so we can have a little bit more context on how bad the Giants defense is in general. But yeah, Giants run defense is 27th DVOA, so I mean it's a bottom 5 run defense DVOA, and 30th in yards allowed per carry, so bottom 3 in yards allowed per carry. And if Gibson can't go, I mean that's probably 20 touches for B-Rob in this game. So
yeah,
I would go B-Rob's way if Gibson doesn't go. It sounds like Gibson might be limited in the game. He's a true game time decision or questionable at the time, so it's tough to say. Today is Thursday, folks, that we are recording. But if Gibson for some reason does not go, Gibson's in play. B-Rob is in play.
I think for me, like the way that I look at these is if Carter is out, Gibson is in, I'll play Knight. If Gibson is out, I'll play B-Rob. If Carter and I'd consider Zonovan even if Carter was playing.
I think Carter is officially doubtful. He's officially doubtful.
Yeah, he looks very up, but I'm just saying, like, if Carter were to play at 4,600, I would still be considering Zonovan. Is more of the point that I'm making there. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think Zonovan, to me, at that price, if he was 5,600, even if he was 5,300, that Robinson is, but 4,600, I'm considering Zonovan either way. But if Gibson was out, I'd find the 700 for Robinson. Fair. Then, do you have any interest in David Montgomery, 6,200? Yes. He's another guy he's not the sexiest play, but he's a classic
cash play.
You can play him in cash. We saw the Packers got destroyed by the Eagles on the ground last week. Sanders and Hurts. Like, people, I think, are looking at that, and to me, I think people are going to go Etienne, Montgomery, Agreed. Or Jacobs, and then probably Zonovan. I think those are the 4 people are going to choose from in cash.
I think that's pretty fair.
David Montgomery is not a sexy play.
No, I mean I would play David Montgomery. I like David Montgomery this week. I mean I mean when I'm looking at like my short list for running backs, and it really has more so to do with David Montgomery's price of 62. Like there is some savings there that frees some money up to get a little bit better at wide receiver. So I definitely like Montgomery. He's definitely on the short list. I think like there's a world where like I'm trying to fit some cheaper wide receivers in. I will get to that, but I think there's like when we look on the cheap side, there's some wide receivers where I can get some pretty decent savings where I feel a bit better, where there's a lot more, there's some wide receivers here that are cheap, and I think there's a lot of opportunity and good matchups coming their way. So I'm on the fence with Montgomery right now, but there's a chance I really end up playing him. I think I'm right now in this spot where I'm trying to like figure out a way to squeeze Chubb in there. That's kind of where I'm
at. I do think like you don't have to play Montgomery this week because Zonovan is there, and you can, if you're playing Zonovan, you shouldn't do it to play Montgomery. You should do it to play Chubb or Jacobs.
Agreed. Absolutely agree. Yeah.
Cool.
You want to talk about anyone else, or do you want to hit this pool of
No.
let's narrow it a little bit. Let's go pool of 4 running backs.
Etienne, Chubb, Zonovan, and let's say Robinson.
Okay. Let's say Gibson plays.
If Gibson plays, then it would be Montgomery.
Okay.
For me.
Shifting over to the wide receivers, I feel like it's just at this point in time, death taxes. Give me Amon-Ra St. Brown. The price, like when I looked at the pricing, the wide receivers, like I'll just say it right now. There's 2 guys that stuck out to me that I'm building the cash lineup around these guys. It's Amon-Ra St. Brown. The guy is just a dog. He's just getting so much volume at 7,100. It just seems like this is the cash play. Like you play Amon-Ra in cash because his pricing it seems to be in a pretty fair spot. And then Garrett Wilson, again, absolute dog. I love Garrett Wilson. Now that Mike White's there, things are looking great. He's only 5,300, and there should be a lot of targets coming his way. I mean, you just take a look at him, and he is the alpha on the team, and I'm a little bullish on this Jets offense. So it's really hard for me to make a lineup without Amon-Ra St. Brown and Garrett Wilson because at 71 and 53, you're not really spending too much. Like it's a safe start. You know what I'm saying? When you're clicking 2 wide receivers' names and it's only going to be 12,400. It's like, all right, like this is stomachable. We can kind of work from here. So, I'm big on Amon-Ra St. Brown and Garrett Wilson this week. I'm sure other people will be as well. Your thoughts on these 2 in cash?
Yeah, just play Amon-Ra in cash every single week. He was the key to Thanksgiving slate last week. I think he was 6,600 on that one. And it was just like, if I made a lineup, he was in it. I think he's a great play. We saw what Garrett Wilson did. Unfortunately, last week, I switched off of Gibson towards the end. I sort of restructured my lineup a little bit and ended up trying to fit in Higgins, which was the correct move. Like he had a great play, but it ended up getting me off of Wilson. So I think Wilson at 5,300 is still probably underpriced. Minnesota is a good matchup. Last week he had a little tougher matchup. So yeah, I think Garrett Wilson, Amon-Ra St. Brown are the first 2 in your lineup. But like on the upper end, I think because of Zonovan Mitchell or Zonovan Knight, I should say, I think I want to try to find a way of getting up to Devontae Adams.
Like you can't go. I don't think you can go Chubb and Adams though. You might have to make a choice there.
Well, yeah, that's sort of my point. Is like, I think I saw a stat where basically either Jacobs or Adams goes off. So if I'm going to be fading Jacobs, I almost want to get Adams.
Get one of the 2.
I think you can fit them both. I'm not sure if you need Lawrence. I guess I haven't built it out that way, but I think if you're going with Zonovan Etienne, I think it's doable because you might have to go with like Zay Jones.
Yeah, I might have to get Zay Jones in there and also like Montgomery and Zonovan or something like that.
But yeah, I think if Jamar Chase was still out, I would be going back to Higgins here, 7,200. But I think if Jamar Chase is back, I can't play Higgins in cash anymore. Would you have interest in another revenge game? AJ Brown paying up for him. It's revenge week.
It is revenge week. I'm probably not going that direction.
You can make an all revenge team. I might have to just throw that in like a $3 contest.
Because you can fit DJ Chark, Marvin Jones, Jeff Wilson, AJ Brown. There's a lot of ways to go here. Watson, yeah, you got a quarterback there. I mean, we talk about tight ends. We got to find our revenge tight end when we get there. But no, I'm probably not going AJ Brown's way. I mean, I'll respect him. I'll be playing him in my redraft leagues and dynasty leagues. But at 78, I'm likely just kind of there's like this like level right where I'm like, oh, I'll play DA at 87. And then I'm pretty much like just skipping down to Amon-Ra at 71 and kind of going from there. I mean, I like Higgins, I like Waddle. Chase is good, but like I'm not playing those guys. It doesn't really fit with the builds that I'm playing with.
Yeah. Yeah, that's where like I'm sort of in cash already paying up somewhat paying up for Amon-Ra. So I guess if we go down a little lower on this list, do you have interest in Christian Kirk? I know people kind of want it. Has Zay Jones flipped Christian Kirk?
I don't know if he's flipped them, but with the prices 49 and 63,
Yeah,
yes. I'm more interested in Zay. I'm more interested in Zay at
2K.
49 than Christian Kirk at 63 because of the price.
Yeah, and this similar to what we were saying about Jeff Wilson. Just quickly wanted to say I didn't mention that Tyreek and Justin Jefferson. The reason I'm more on Adams, they're both in tough matchups. Generally, they're both matchup proof,
Of course.
but I think it somewhat limits their upside. So, because as those games might be less likely to shoot out more so, because it might be more of a battle. So, not really going as much up there. I'd like to get your take in this mid range though. So, you said you weren't too interested in Chark. Do you have any interest in maybe like a Terry McLaurin, Amari Cooper, some of these other guys in the 6K range? Keenan Allen?
Taking a look at them, we talked a little bit about Christian Kirk. I think Brandon Ayuk is a guy that sticks out to me a bit. Debo, I think he's going to be declared out. I don't think Debo's playing. Not that it opens up a ton up, but Brandon Ayuk's just been a pretty solid cash play lately and a pretty soft matchup. I don't expect a lot of people to go Brandon Ayuk's way. I think he's more of like a sneaky cash play. But, in this range, Brandon Ayuk and then, of course, Tyler Lockett at 6K. I mean, Tyler Lockett's on a tear right now. He's a 4-game hot streak on touchdown, so it's going to have to end. But I have interest in Ayuk and Lockett, right at that same price. And then we're in that zone. Mike's chiming in here. Mike Williams just announced out. I think, that tracks. But you like Josh Palmer or Juju
that.
better? Yeah. I mean, they're right there
Palmer
in that range
me,
too. I mean,
think.
Juju 57 and Palmer 56.
Palmer is kind of like he's been the guy, and
in a lot of ways he has been because Keenan Allen hasn't looked like himself. Yeah.
And Keenan's generally just a short yardage guy. I prefer Josh Palmer. I played Juju last week, and my issue with Juju in a Mahomes offense is Mahomes spreads it out a lot, and they're getting Pacheco more involved. They'll dump it off to McKinnon. Kelsey's the guy. Outside of Kelsey, I don't have too much confidence in one guy or another. MVS also could have a game. So I'm not super confident in Juju. I think I feel a lot better about Palmer for similar price, especially for cash. I think Juju is probably good in tournaments because that game, you might just, in tournaments, the play literally could be just get 3 guys from each side of that game.
And just make sure they hit.
And it just say the game ends like 34-31 or something, So I like Juju in tournaments, but I feel safer with Palmer.
Yeah. Mike comes in with what we're basically with a great stat. Mahomes hit 10 different targets last week.
Yeah, I was watching that game, and I had Juju in our FFPC team. We had Juju, and I was watching that game, and I was like, "Is that him? Nope. Is that him? What number is Juju?
Guy.
Is he even playing?"
Guy. Yeah.
So
there's so many dudes catching balls there.
He's a stressful one in that offense to go off of.
Any other wide receivers? Is there like some really cheap guys? A couple that I think stick out to me that I just wanted to go over real quick. Kendall Hinton at 36 if you really need to punt, and Richie James at 38. I mean, these are 2 dudes that are going to get you at least 5 to 6 targets. I don't know if I need to go that low, but like as I really scroll down here, I'm like, who would I punt? Those are 2 names that stick out to me. I think Nico Collins is another one who's starting to kind of out-target Brandon Cooks in some ways. Like, I don't necessarily think this is like a matchup that I love, especially the quarterback situation, but I don't find myself needing to save this much money. But if I need to save money and you're like, shit, like I got a lineup I really like. Back. I got 4, I got 4, I got a wide receiver slot. I only have $4,100, $4,200 left. I think Nico, Richie James. Like Richie James is playing the slot role right now for the Giants. And that slot role eats. We saw Wandell eat there. We've seen Sterling Shepard eat there. It's a role that gets a lot of targets. And I think, he kind of got there in garbage time last week. But that scores the same on DraftKings. So those are some names. If I need to go cheap, I'd be going.
What do you think about Chase Claypool?
With Mooney out?
Mooney
Yeah.
Mooney injury. It's funny. It might have been that first drive last week. It was like, is Trevor Siemian unlocking Chase Claypool? He had like a 30-yard catch,
No, I
and
think
we
it
were like,
really
oh
only
wow,
like 2 for
Claypool is
50.
back.
Yeah.
Claypool's back. Yeah, you had like 2, and he ended 2 for 50 or something. Yeah, but 3,800. I don't really hate that. If Mooney's out, then that's just like more targets that are going to have to go somewhere.
Yeah. I don't hate it. I don't hate it.
So it's more like a bet on talent. I think you can, if you're going cheap, like we somewhat joked about it earlier with Marvin Jones, but Josh Reynolds,
Revenge
Marvin Jones, and
game.
Khalif Raymond are all like 4K players in a game that we think could shoot out. So I think they're all reasonable tournament plays. I don't have any leans for cash on any of them. Zay Jones is we saw it last week. Like Zay Jones is just by far and away a better play than any of them. But I think in tournaments people are going to be locked in to Jones. But you could go, man. All those Lions receivers. Try to find the one. Is it going to be Chark, Reynolds, Raymond? Like you never know on a given week. But to me, I think they're good targets in tournaments, but in cash, I think I like your Richie James call the most.
Cool. Is there any other wide receivers you want to talk about before we go to the pool of 5 and shift over to tight ends?
Yeah, I guess another cheap one would be DeAndre Carter, but I don't really like it all that much. What about Traylon Burks? He's another interesting one that I played a little last week.
I like him. I like Burks, but outside wide receivers against the Eagles with Bradbury and Slay, it's been
a
tough.
Tough matchup.
It's been tough. And like that's just not the direction I'm going to go this week. I like Burks. I think he's a great hold. I think there's better weeks to come. I'm not necessarily going to call him like a league winner, but I think he could be a solid like flex option moving forward. He's talented, but it's just not the lineup or the matchup where I'm like want to get him in there. So I'm fading Burks this week for better or worse. I'm fading.
Yeah, there's just tons of these guys in this range, in this 4K range, that you could easily pay up in multiple other spots and pay cheap here.
Moving. Sorry, I'm not moving yet. We gotta get the pool. I was distracted. Pool of 5 wide receivers.
Yeah, Adams, Amon-Ra, St. Brown, Garrett Wilson, Zay Jones, and Josh Palmer.
All right. Going to the tight end position. I mean, I guess the question every week, Lou, is do we play Travis Kelce? 79. We know the matchup is good. We know he's an absolute dog. We know he gives you such an advantage at the position. Are you finding a way to get Travis Kelce in there at 79?
What I just said, like you can get up there. Problem is, like, do you need it? If you played him last week, I think he had it at like 15 points. Like 15 points almost doesn't do it for him because one of these other tight ends probably gets like 3 catches, 40 yards, and a touchdown. So I don't think you have to pay up for it. But what I sort of mentioned earlier, I think if you're going to play Mahomes, you have to play Kelce in that lineup. Because if Mahomes at 8,300 hits his ceiling, Kelce's
Likely
coming with him.
Kelce,
yeah. So that's probably where I would play Kelce. It's like the paying up. But I don't think I'm trying to get there in cash.
On the flip side of things, with an Njoku news, who's been
people wanted to play him this week.
Harrison Bryant at 27. I mean, we're talking about pretty much a punt here. 2,700 Harrison Bryant. He's when Njoku's out, he's pretty much a full-time wide receiver. Had some decent games. I think he cleared. Like maybe might have had like 11 or 12 DK points in 2 of the last 3 when Njoku was out. That's great. That was exactly what you'd be looking for at this price. So I find myself kind of working towards Harrison Bryant at 27 just because, I tend to punt the tight end position and kind of hope just to get like 6 to 8 points out of it. And Harrison Bryant seems to fit that mold for me.
Yeah, I think it seems fine. I think 2,700, another way that you could save, like, just makes it each one of these plays just makes me think like it's very easy to get Hurts into a team this week.
It is.
We haven't had value for like 3 or 4 weeks, so
It's been rough.
good to see value.
It's been rough.
It's going to make playing these tournaments a lot nicer. I found the revenge game Titan though. Tyler Conklin.
Okay.
He's viable this week.
He is viable this week. Oh my god, dude.
He is viable this week. I don't think he's probably more of like a pivot off of Bryant. If Bryant is going to be super chalky, you can go to Conklin. Foster Moreau is now priced up a little bit to 3,600. Outside of them, like Hayden Hurst has been decent. It's just there's so many guys in this 3K tight end range that if Kelsey doesn't get a touchdown, they might just match him.
Yeah. I mean, Conklin would be my second choice if I wasn't going to Harrison Bryant. I guess two other guys that are worth mentioning, in my opinion. TJ Hawkinson at 52, he's been getting a lot of work. They traded for him for a reason, and they're using him. Yeah. And then Hayden Hurst, he's been pretty solid for the most part. 3,500 is pretty damn cheap in a game that we expect there to be a lot of passing. He can come down with a touchdown. Your thoughts on Hawk and Hurst as kind of being our like ancillary favorites here?
I like Hawkinson. I played him in that Thanksgiving slate. I thought he was the best tight end play there. I just think the way he's being used in Minnesota is better than what his usage was early in the year for Detroit. He's getting tons of targets. Once again, if we think Justin Jefferson might have a tougher matchup than most weeks, targets will flow to Hawkinson. Seems like he prefers Hawkinson to Thielen even these days. Mm-hmm. So I like Hawkinson. He's 2,700 less than Kelsey. So I think if you're going to pay up, I probably would pay up to Hawkinson. I don't think I would go to Andrews either. But 5,200 seems like a good price for him.
Pool of 3 tight ends.
This week, it's probably Hawkinson, Bryant, and Conklin.
Close things out. Defense, special teams. I usually like to punt just because that's the way this thing works. The one that makes the most sense for me is going to be the Steelers at 26. Against Atlanta. Seems like a pretty good price. I think the other one that I've interested in also at 26 is Jets versus Vikings. We know the Vikings are a good offense, but the Jets defense has been quite stout. I just find myself needing to save that kind of money again. Like I'm saving money at tight end. I'm saving money at defense special teams. I think Jets and Steelers are the two that I'm probably going to be clicking on. Your thoughts here?
Yeah, I think Packers are good at 3K as well. You could go to the Broncos at 2,400 if you want. Mostly because there's both the offenses in that game like haven't been all that great recently here, and for me, I just think that game could be low scoring. It could be like 13-10, 17-13, something like that. Yep. So I don't really expect them to be any sort of blowout. Broncos defense have been pretty decent, and Lamar's susceptible to turning the ball over and getting sacked and things like that. So I think if you're going to go off of, I would expect the Steelers probably to be the most chalky. If you can get up to the Seahawks, everyone loves playing defenses against the Rams, but luckily, compared to last week, they priced this defense up. The Chiefs last week were at 2,800. So they priced up the Seahawks in this matchup, which I think will lower the ownership a little bit. I'm sure people will go up there, but outside of that, I don't know. Nothing else is really catching my eye.
Final thoughts, week 13, Lou.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways that you could save salary this week. It's going to be a little harder, I think, in tournaments. Probably end up seeing higher scores because of it, because you can jam some of these other guys in if the low end guys hit. So just be conscious of that, but make sure you're paying attention to Gibson if he's not going to play. Zombie Knight, I think I'll probably play him either way, but there are some injury news to pay attention to this week. And then besides that, good luck. Fantasy playoffs coming up. Here's pretty soon. If you're not already in it, this week is first week for some people. But yeah, I think this is going to be a fun week here.
Plug the Twitter and plug the work, my friend.
At Lucky_Ludog, work over at Lucky Trader. Also do their DK Rainmaker content.
And you can find me on Twitter at FFTylero. That's all we have today, folks. Don't forget, tell somebody you love them. Later.